Hey guys, welcome back to some new Battlefield 6 leaks. I know we had some crazy leaks already, but this might be the most crazy one because it's already talking about Season 1 or a potential Season 1 for Battlefield 6. We know from the official sources from EA's CEO Andrew Wilson that the game will be a live service game, so we have to expect seasons, but we didn't know anything about the actual content so far. But Vanek again has leaked something that might be connected to the first season of Battlefield 6 or whatever the game will be called. But as usual, take this with a pinch of salt or with a grain or with tequila and lemon or whatever you want to take it with, but take it with a pinch of this because it might be true, it may not be true, we don't know. You know how it is with these leaks. They may be true, they may not be true. But what Vanek has found is two weapons, which is the minifix bolt action rifle and the DP12 shotgun, and I think I've showed you these two before, but we didn't really know where they belong to. Then as Gadget there is the TRV 150 drone, and it says mortar drop behind it, but the TRV-50 is not so much a drone for fighting, but one that is actually used for resupplying. So it's normally used for transportation of supplies like ammunition or equipment for the troops, but it remains to be seen how this would be used in a Battlefield game. I'm sure you could drop bombs with it as well, but we will see how they will use it in Battlefield. Then as a vehicle we have the Marauder APC, so an armored vehicle, and then we have field upgrade trees, so those field specs or field upgrades that we've seen in the leaked gameplay before and that I've already talked about in former videos. And here we have, for example, the field mechanic, which sounds like it could be a field upgrade for the engineer, because it says, for example, that damaging vehicles applies burning and improves launcher reloading, or enhanced sprinting and sabotage distance near enemy vehicles, which definitely sounds like an engineer field upgrade. And then the second one that was leaked by Vanek is Point Man, and this sounds like an upgrade for the assault class. So you have again these 4 levels that you work your way through during a match. So at level 1, for example, you have insert plates faster, carry more ammo, resist impairment. And then at level 4, for example, there is downing enemies briefly improves sprinting and reveals survivors. Now, since we're talking about plates and talking about revealing survivors, I could also imagine that these are actually made for the Battle Royale mode. So we know that the Battle Royale mode was leaked and that it will be very likely coming to the next Battlefield game. And inserting plates faster and revealing survivors doesn't really sound like something that you would actually use or it would be necessary in a normal multiplayer mode. Also, I gotta say that I'm not really a fan of having armor plates in the normal multiplayer mode. So this could be something that is specifically made for the Battle Royale mode. And then we also have a full list of gadgets that I think his name is Mars has compiled here for us. And it shows all of the gadgets that will be available for the assault, for the engineer, for support, recon, and some that are unknown or that are unfinished or they don't belong to a class yet, or maybe they will never belong to a class. But this is what they have found. So the adrenaline shot, I think we've seen this already as a class gadget for the assault. Then mass dragon breath, no idea what this could be. Then we have the smoke and high explosive launchers, thermite launcher, thermobaric launcher, and a drill charge, which reminds me of Call of Duty. I'm not sure if it works in the same way it does with Call of Duty, but I could imagine that this could be something that drills through walls or can even be used against vehicles. Then for the engineer we have the repair tool that we've also seen as class gadget already. Then we have the Stinger, the AT4, the AT Mines, the classic RPG, the Javelin again, then the M4A1 Slam. If you played Battlefield 4 you should be familiar with this, but it wasn't in any other Battlefield game since Battlefield 4 I believe. And then we have the PTKM1R, which is this new Russian anti-tank mine that you place, and then I think it launches into the air and down to the vehicle or something. I've just seen some videos on YouTube because I had no idea what this actually is. And then we have the support and recon gadgets. So for the support we have the supply crate that we've also seen as the class gadget. Then of course the defibrillator, which is necessary for the support, and the deployable cover. We've also seen this briefly in the leaked gameplay. Then grenade interceptor, so sounds like a trophy system. Then we have the tracer dart, which is cool that it's making a return. Then the supply pouch, so probably like the crate, but you can throw it. And then the missile interceptor. So there's a split this time between grenade interception and missile interception. If you can remember from Battlefield 2042, from Iris APS system, that did intercept everything that was coming its way. If it was a missile or grenade, it didn't matter. But this time it seems like you will have to decide if you want to intercept grenades or missiles. And then for the recon we have the tox, so the typical placeable spotting gadget, then the claymore, SOFLAM, spawn beacon, C4, PLD. I'm not sure what this could be, to be honest. And then we have the recon drone again, so probably a spotting drone similar to the drone that Casper has in 2042. And then as unknown we have the XM25 launcher, which was also available in Battlefield 4, so the airburst launcher. Then we have flash, LVG and sticky launcher. I really don't like to read sticky launcher here, to be honest. I really have more of a hate relationship to this one in 2042 because it's so annoying. Then we have the MBT law, which is good news because I really like it as a launcher, then mortar and a decoy. And then moving on to a potential weapon drop or call in for the Battle Royale. It's actually a gadget as well, that's why I included here, but Vanek writes that it's a potential call in for Battle Royale, and this would be the Carl Gustav M4, which is basically a rocket launcher that can destroy tanks, buildings and whatever, and also create a smoke screen or light up the battlefield at night, so it has different rounds. Sounds like something that could be useful in Battle Royale. I don't think that with these different rounds and these different ways of how you can use it, that it will be coming to the multiplayer. I can't really imagine that. And then we have some more details about the game modes. I've already talked about this in another video where these game modes were actually leaked, but back then we didn't really know what sabotage could be or escalation could be or strike point. And here Vanek also has some more descriptions for it. So these game modes were already leaked before, so Conquest, Conquest Small, Breakthrough, Rush, Team Deathmatch, Squad Deathmatch and Domination, which are all the modes that we already know from former games. Then we have Sabotage, which is new, I think, and it says when attacking, sabotage as many enemy assets as possible. When defending, prevent the enemy from destroying your assets. Then there is Escalation, or also called Raid, which says fight to capture and hold objectives to extend your territory. And then we have Strike Point, which I said in the last video reminds me on Strike Team, so the attack and defend mode that we had during an event in 2042. And here it says fight across multiple rounds to capture a key objective. So that sounds kind of different than a classic AD mode, and it sounds more like the HQ modes that we know from Call of Duty. So you have a moving HQ that you have to capture and shut down, and then the next round starts. It's probably something like this. Then we have Payload, which is a mode that is also known from Call of Duty, so it should work in a similar way. And it says fight to escort a payload the furthest and fastest or stop the enemy in their tracks. So it sounds like pretty much every payload mode that we've already seen in other games. And then King of the Hill, of course, maintain control of the marked areas to earn points. The first team to reach the target score wins. And that sounds pretty much like the mode that we already had in the latest event of Battlefield 2042. And then down below we have additional modes that were incomplete in their data or just had a prototype status. And this is Shutdown, which might be the same mode that we had in 2042 already, where you had to plant this lance and then shut down the objectives as fast as possible. Then Tank Hunt, probably a vehicle focused mode. Crimson, Gunmaster, Touchdown, Tug of War, Fantastic Four, which is kind of a terrible name for a Battlefield mode, and Squad Shootout. I don't know what these modes could be, but Gunmaster should be well known from Call of Duty as well as from Battlefield 3 and 4. Was one of my favorite modes actually in Battlefield 4, so I really like to see this returning. And then lastly, one thing a bit off topic, but it's not really about Battlefield, but it's about EA and about Respawn Studios, because we just got the news that EA has cancelled 2 projects that were in development and that were actually shooter games, and one of them was an extraction shooter set in the Titanfall universe. And they also laid off, I think, 400 people in some, so that's quite a lot for their studios, and 100 of those were laid off in Respawn Entertainment, so the studio working on Apex Legends, and I think they also worked on the Jedi Survivor series or the Jedi games. And yeah, now they've been working on a Titanfall extraction shooter, or an extraction shooter set in the Titanfall universe at least. But for everyone who was maybe eagerly waiting for Titanfall 3, like me for example, because I thought Titanfall was actually a very, very good game, just had terrible marketing, and now they have shut down another Titanfall game that could have been maybe Titanfall 3 or something around this. So, but that's just on the side, maybe something you weren't aware of and was interesting for you. But anyways, that was it for today. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, be sure to drop a like and subscribe, and I'm gonna see you in the next one. I'm Catwoman, and you are awesome.